Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second part of week 15, the final week of the semester. I guess technically speaking, finals is the final week of the semester, but we don't count that. We're just going to say that's just a week that exists outside of the semester to cause us stress. So we've had some great presentations on Monday. I'm looking forward to some great presentations today, but I do have a few reminders. So first of all, I want to remind what I talked about on Friday. If you are planning on taking the final exam, if you are interested in doing that, like I said, everybody in the class has the option to opt out of the final exam and receive, for the most part, I think will be the grade that's on a Brightspace. That is subject to a few conditions that you have to meet, but for the most part, whatever the grade that you post on a Brightspace, you project a final letter grade. If you are planning on taking the exam to try to improve that, take the exam to prove that grade, please let me know by the end of this week if possible. I would just like to make sure that I have a count of how many people to expect. For reference, the exam is on Monday morning at 11:30, so not a lot of time to study. It is comprehensive, so you might want to start making that decision sooner rather than later. Also, as a reminder, I know everybody's been working diligently at this, but please make sure that you have your summaries prepared for each of the presentations. I heard some typing, I heard some notes being taken, and diligent work on that. So please keep it up. Make sure you have those summaries submitted before final exams this coming Monday. If you do not have those submitted by final exam, then I'm going to assume that you plan on sitting for that, which is probably a disastrous assumption for both of us. So let's just make sure we get everything submitted as soon as possible. My hope is that most of you can just submit whatever you have on Friday at the end of class, and we'll all be done with it. And then, yeah, I had one more thing that I was going to talk about, but I completely totally blanked on what that was going to be. So if I remember it, I'll talk about it at the end of class. But we'll go ahead and get started. What's up, Ozzy?
Are you okay if the summaries are handwritten, scanned in?
That's absolutely fine. Okay. Yeah, you do not have to transpose those for my sake. Again, this is mostly for purposes of showing that you're paying attention to the presentation. So if you want to write them down and take a picture of it on there, that's absolutely fine. All right, let's get on to the next round of presentations. Doran, you're up first.
All right, my top. Oh, wait. So my topic was about kind of using LLMs for like music rating or music content rating. So my research question, how can we utilize large language AI models to create music content rating system similar to the MPA's movie rating system? So like you guys know, like, rated R, PG, that kind of stuff, kind of the same thing with music instead. So the result was I've kind of figured out AI is capable of accurately determining a song's content rating when you give it a list of criteria like expletives, violent content, like that kind of thing, and then give it ranges allowed for each different rating like G, PG, PG-13. So the implications of this is one, it can protect young audiences from explicit content. It gives them or their guardians a general idea of a content a song contains. So right now we kind of just have non-explicit and explicit, which explicit music can be like, oh, there's one cuss word, or it could be like there's like 12. So like you really don't have a great idea just based off of explicit or non-explicit. So this kind of helps with that. So number two, promotes music industry growth and listening freedom, allowing audiences to access more content suited to them. So like, imagine like you were 13 and you were only allowed to access non-explicit music. That would be like 40% of music. So with this new system, you could access like maybe 60 or 70% of music. So now you have more music to listen to, you listen to more music, you're more interested in music because you have more freedom to choose what you want to listen to. The third implication is it handles a large volume of songs released. So since the MPA's inception in like 1930, they've rated about 40,000 movies in total, versus there was 120,000 songs released on Spotify this year. So obviously the volume's kind of different and you can't have a board of like actual people doing that. So using LLMs for this is more quick and effective for this application. Yeah. That was it.
This is a cool idea. What would your, this maybe go beyond to just be on the rating system, but, what would be your mechanism for implementation if something like this were to take place? Like, would it just be like kind of a parental guidance setting like they currently have on like cable systems?
I think it could be kind of an independent thing where like streaming platforms could implement it or like have a, I don't know, like a program implemented into their own apps, I guess. But yeah, I don't really know.
What do you see being some of the drawbacks of something like this?
I think it could be used for censorship, which is not really what I intended this for, because obviously, um, you know, some songs, if they're rated R, they're gonna get less streams or like that kind of thing. But I think generally, like overall, it can help more than it can hurt. But yeah.
Good work. Caleb.
All right. So for my research project, I looked at how or some of the implications that AI might have on finance and investing. So one of the first ones that I looked at is the way that AI is going to impact automation and efficiency, actually the way that it already is. It's already being used a lot in finance and investing, especially with really simple tasks like processing transactions or doing data entry and going through that data, making sure that it's compliant and correct. And then beyond that, it's also being used for data analysis. Looking forward, it'll definitely be able to analyze data way faster than humans can. It already can do that, but it's able to process way larger volumes of data in a way shorter amount of time. And that'll be really good for helping analysts identify trends in the market before they happen or try and predict them. And that'll be good for improving risk management and it just improve prediction capabilities overall. People will have a better understanding of where the market might be going ahead of time. Now, looking at some specific ways that AI will impact trading and trading strategies, there are actually a few different products out there. They're mainly algorithm based, but use AI to actually execute trades on behalf of people. A lot of them are crypto based right now, but there are some that actually can trade on stock exchanges for people. And then AI will also help with creating a lot more tailored investment advice. It could kind of fill more of like a financial advisor type role where it can listen to the specific needs and wants of people and it can tailor to exactly what they need. And then lastly, looking at some of the implications down the road, obviously it's automating a lot of the entry level tasks and a lot of like simple work and it may take away some of the jobs associated with things like that. However, AI is there will need people to manage the AI and set up the prompts that it uses and things like that. So I don't think that, at least right now, it's not going to take away a ton of jobs. It might take away a few, but there'll definitely be a lot of jobs added. And then AI will also allow for a much more efficient trading marketplace. So as the algorithms are able to better predict where the markets are heading and able to react and trade on behalf of people, they can like react to the news and to events happening in real time. And so markets will be much more efficient and will react a lot faster. And then lastly, I think that it's really important that financial professionals start learning how to use AI and start learning how to prompt. It's definitely a tool that will set them ahead of the competition. If you don't start using it, you're gonna fall behind really fast.
You mentioned efficient markets, so I'm assuming you're familiar with the efficient markets hypothesis. So, do you think that AI kind of represents the promise of actually truly efficient markets?
I think it's definitely a step in like way further in that direction because if it's actually like 5, 10 years from now, actually able to like look at the news in real time and trade for people based on the news as it happens, then yeah, I think we'll be way, way closer to actually efficient markets.
So in the interim, between 5 and 10 years from now, is there a possibility that there may be traders who could use AI to take advantage of the fact that markets are not fully efficient yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think maybe that's part of the strategy that's being used already with some of that, some of those that are already active. But I don't know exactly how. Obviously, just trying to analyze whatever data that already exists out there and doing what they can with that information. But
If you figure it out, let me know. I'll be a shareholder in your company. So. Carter.
Alrighty. So my name's Carter. What was my project? I had Microsoft Copilot basically go through and write a short story that would be run for a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. I then had it run said adventure, and I took the role of the players, basically testing what the AI could and couldn't handle. But why did I do this? I personally really enjoy playing TTRPGs, which is tabletop role-playing games, so D&D, the Call of Cthulhu game system, stuff like that. And the AI was able to make a great story. It was able to actually put everything together and kind of set up everything. And that is really good. It was able to make a story that can help the DM. It can get out that nice groundwork. And other than that, it really had some efficiency of like rolling lots of dice at once. For example, it was able to roll 46-sided dice at once and rapidly tally them, which is far faster than I could grab all 40 dice or open up a dice roller and type out, oh yes, I want you to roll 46-sided dice. So those were all things that did good. Efficiency and getting a good solid baseline for a story. It struggled in that as the campaign or as the session went on, it kept on forgetting older and older information. Like it no longer remembered the story it set out once you got too far into the game. It had a very hard time saying no to players, which is why I included a picture of Yes Man from Fallout New Vegas. It just constantly wants to say yes. It wants the players to constantly experience more and more and get everything they want. And it really shouldn't do that because it allowed the entire game to be derailed. The players could pull out random items that they should not have at low levels, and it led to an entire collapse in the gameplay. So what's the potential for its improvement? It would really need to get a lot more humanized. It needs to be able to say no to players, which right now AI isn't built to say no to the people asking it to do something. It would also need to have higher efficiency so that it can remember older and older chat logs. As you go further and farther, deeper and deeper, you need to either constantly remind it of older things that were discussed, or you need to improve it. That or the people making the AI need to improve its functionality to go back and reread its older logs. So my conclusion, final thoughts, AI should definitely be a tool that can be used to build up the base of a story. It should not be used to actually be a supplement to the DM that is running the game. The human interaction and connectivity is way too important to just get overridden like this by a machine that just says yes.
So obviously you kind of stated your conclusion. Do you think that this will improve, I guess, with future models, at least as with respect to the memory of recent events?
I don't think it will, because I don't think that's a strong focus that most AI companies have right now. I think they're more so wanting to upgrade like analytic power that or upgrade like its predictive power, not so much at recalling its own previous outputs, especially if they're not numerical in nature. For example, I have used some AI like for helping with math problems, and like it's able to call back those because usually it doesn't have a massively long output. But for these long text-based descriptions that sometimes outputs for like D&D games, it can be like entire paragraphs for every output. And at some point, you're just scrolling up for 5 minutes to get back up to the top of the conversation, and the AI doesn't like unloads all that, so it can continue processing further down here. So they would need to upgrade their processing power, that or they would need to have like a more cloud-based system for its own memory of conversations. And then there's also the issue of just the human element. It is very odd to have to sit there and wait for somebody to respond before you get like a massive wall of text compared to actually having an active conversation with somebody. So that can also be a big detractor. I know that you asked about the recalling chat logs, but that's also another issue that I found. It's very weird to just ask it a question. You have to sit there for a minute and then you get a massive wall of text rather than hearing a sentence immediately to your response, like hearing that sentence build out.
This is some very, very volatile things that AI could do for role-playing games of this type. Like players would no longer put all their stats into persuasion. So, because the AI is going to immediately do whatever they ask. So
Correct. You can also just force it to completely circumnavigate things. You can say, hey, the players are bored. They want to go to the boss now. Hey, the players want to instantly kill the boss. No rolls required. And it just says yes.
instant gratification, I guess, is the best gratification. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions?
Did you try / do you think it would work if you were to directly prompt the AI to use previous responses to formulate its response?
I did try. So very much later on, I said, "Hey, do you remember whenever I told you this?" And it was, "Well, what are you talking about? I don't see that anywhere." So I scrolled up, copy and pasted the exact prompt and response that occurred, and it's like, "Oh, now I remember." It simply could not load that far back in the chain at some point. So you either have to constantly remind it about previous conversations and previous rules that were stated, or you just say, well, it's not remembering, and at this point, I'm too tired. It's been 4 hours. I'm not reminding it. Let's just see where this goes.
We're all worried about the threat of privacy and constant storage of data, and yet it seems the AI can only hold a certain amount of data at a time. So
Yeah, I think the worst part would be, sure, the companies that own the AI would be storing the data. It's certainly not the AI itself right now.
other questions? All right, good job. Andrew.
All right, so my project was about AI storytelling and prompt engineering and how we can use prompt engineering to get the AI to tell better stories. So if you ever had Copilot or ChatGPT or anything just tell you a story, and now it kind of sucks at just making a story without any input given to it. It creates the most bland stories I've ever seen in my life. I could not try to write a more bland story. So the goal of this was just, like what can you do to get it to write a better story? First off, don't use zero shot. Like I said, very, very bland stories. The stories it generates are always usually magical, always have a happy ending. It's pretty much the same thing over and over again. Using true shots helps a lot. Like say you want a Sherlock Holmes style story with a mystery. Well, now you can get it to generate a mystery story. Role-based stories or having it take on a role is probably the most interesting thing you can do when you want it to write a story, because it can really it does a really, really good job at impersonating people, although it doesn't like to do that. You always have to circumvent it. You always have to tell it, you are an expert writer that writes like George R.R. Martin or J.K. Rowling or somebody, and then it'll do that. And whenever it writes like that, like I said, it does a very good job of impersonating them. And stories it writes are still kind of bland, so you really have to give it the specifics. a good use of this is actually rewriting. Say you have a generated story and you just don't like a certain sentence that I wrote, or maybe you want it to include a specific aspect. What I recommend doing is copy and pasting what it wrote and then telling it to rewrite it with specific specifications that you'd prefer. I want this character to be shocked at this. I want there to be a dramatic closing here. Chat logs are something that is very interesting whenever you have it generate stories. If you use the same chat log when it's generating stories, it actually likes to write the same stories, or not exactly the same stories, but it'll write it based off of the previous story it's written. For example, the very first time I did this, I had it tell a story, and it always included a magical crystal, no matter what the story was about. I had it write a story about like two school students, and it somehow got to the point where it was talking about magical crystals again. I don't know how long you guys have been here, but I have never seen a magic crystal at Truman State. I would be impressed. And then using existing stories, one of my examples I gave it was Breaking Bad, and I wanted to write a story based off of that. And again, it's pretty good. And when you give it a base template, something to write based on. In terms of like applications, I think it doesn't have a lot of very good professional applications when it comes to telling a story. It's good for very basic things, but if you want to use it professionally, I'd recommend using it to tweak stuff that you've already made rather than generate its own story. Something I forgot to touch on that Carter kind of mentioned. It's very bad at remembering what it wrote, long stories. It's really bad at it. Like the most you're gonna get for a good story out of it is like maybe like 3 prompts long. Anything longer than that, and it's gonna entirely forget the beginning, middle, and end of the story. It's very frustrating to constantly remind it what it was writing about. Yeah, I would not recommend trying to write long stories with this either.
Maybe an interesting segue there between magical crystals and Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, there would have been. I should have done that.
So obviously, we've kind of established that large language models are pretty much just text predictors. Do you think there's any potential in the future for it to actually come up with a truly novel content, or is it just going to emulate existing content perpetually?
So I think the current large language models and just any future aspect of them are just going to never be able to do that. I just don't see the creativity in them. It's so good at creating what we've already made, or something, or replicating something similar to what we've made. But I think if you wanted it to make something truly creative, it would have to be a total different type of AI from large language models, like Skynet type stuff. That's just a supercomputer.
I would like to avoid Skynet if all possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
I've heard the future of Skynet is not happy for us. All right, any other questions? Good job.
Statement. Mine was also weirdly obsessed with magic crystals.
Was
Like, there was 4 separate occasions where it randomly brought it up whenever there was no mention of it anywhere in the original baseline of the story. So that is very funny.
Maybe it just likes magical crystals. It loves magic when it tells stories. Like seriously, I never tried this with this, but like if you try to ask it to tell you a very bland story, it will still try to come up with something fantastical to talk about. It
Were
just
you guys prompt engineering at the same time?
I doubt it.
I don't remember when I did mine.
We just add that to the course catalog, AIS now with magical crystals.
Creator Gary, just like magical crystals. Just like, let's keep bringing it up.
I'd be very fascinated in if an AI could come up with like a new kind of story, because there's this kind of theory in theater that there are a total of 36 dramatic situations, and every single story is the same thing with different details.
Sounds about right. It seems like AI is really stuck on this whole magical crystal things. We have to re-prompt it and say, tell me a story without magical crystals in it and see what happens. Gone off the rails. Landon, get us back on track. I'll preface this, Landon, by asking, did you encounter magical crystals in your research?
I did not.
All right.
So mine was about how AI can help me learn about the stock market and investing. Biggest thing I took away from this is that you can use AI to learn, and that's probably the best way to use it. Don't just follow it. AI is super efficient and can summarize the market news and trends fast. It shows me what stocks are gaining or losing and what rate. Helps me understand what affects the stock prices and recommends learning topics based on my progress so I can tell it how I'm doing, what I'm learning. And one of the things I did was actually say, teach me day by day more about stocks and more about the stock market, and that helped me out. One of the things is just think smart, not just follow AI. AI gives predictions, but it's not always right. You guys know that with how we've gone through AI for everything. Stock market can change from world events and emotions. It's not just trends that AI tries to follow. And sometimes when going through this project, I realized that AI would go very outdated and I'd have to get it back on track and try to follow trends from the past from way too far back. Main thing I learned, like I said, is I still need to think critically and make my own decisions. Using AI plus my own research is the best combo here. And why I still have to be careful is AI can miss emotional or breaking news. Sometimes worse can just happen out of nowhere, or economic crashes and other things. It doesn't understand how I feel. Some people investing can be greedy, they can be fearful, and doesn't really understand that. I learn more when I question what AI tells me, when it just says something that I don't really understand. Kind of hard to learn from that. You have to ask it more and get further into it. And the biggest thing I learned is AI is a tool, not a shortcut. And if I had to summarize everything right here, it'd be use AI to learn faster, but use your own brain to invest smarter.
Good tagline. You could patent that right there. Yeah. So is it possible for AI to assign kind of at least a direction, if not necessarily a value to emotions? Do you think it's possible that in the future AI could like look at news and say, this is going to make people act irrationally in a negative way or act irrationally in a positive way?
I think so. I was actually doing this. It can kind of AI can scan social media pages and go through all that and kind of try to understand emotions, but it kind of needs more of a direction to completely understand everything. And it can't just go and completely understand. It can try to, but it can't just completely understand emotions because it's not human, and there has to be a human aspect to it. But I do think that there could be in the future, it could try to understand based on trends and progress what kind of makes people act a certain way.
I think one of the big problems is that AI will always be a rational tool.
Yeah.
But human beings will always be irrational individuals. So it's very difficult to align those mechanisms.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Go. Colin. Spell your name. How do you spell your name? One L. All right, so my research question was, how effective is AI in detecting and preventing the spread of misinformation, and does the use of AI deepfakes pose a major risk to society? So first, looking at the creation abilities of AI, AI's got really good at being able to use just a couple pictures or a couple audio clips and being able to put something out there that seems real life or realistic. That can be scary at times. But AI is also right now about 80% effective in being able to detect false content. And let's say by every measure, we can expect that number to continue to rise. Recently, Facebook used 100,000 deepfake videos
to teach their bots how to identify and spot those. That will help with potential false content moderation. Moving on to potential risks they pose to society. A video like this of a world leader or a high-profile politician started to circulate. It could be a bad look for them, even cause panic among citizens in the society. Even at a smaller level, with how easy it is to create this content, personal reputations can be ruined very easily. That could happen with any of us, just with a few pictures or audio clips that we might have online and be able to create this misleading content.
So what's your personal opinion about the laws and regulations that should be imposed over this? Like, should there be governmental oversight over the use of AI deepfakes or the generation of AI deepfakes?
I think to an extent there has to be some sorts of regulation. Problem is, what if it gets too good at detecting things and starts to block or restrict content that is true?
It seems like this could actually be a tool for good, but anything that we use for good can be used for nefarious purposes as well. And the question is like to what point should be restricted? Also, is there a possibility that the AI companies themselves, like the ones who are creating these tools that can actually create deepfakes, have a vested interest in trying to avoid detection?
That's one of the things right now. It's just a big cat and mouse game. As creation gets better, so does detection prevention. But yeah, as creation gets better, so does their ability to evade the detection measures.
Other questions? All right. Okay. Oh.
Okay, so for my research question, I asked how can AI transform haunted houses and their attractions? And so I looked at 4 key types of ways that AI can help. And first is emotion recognition. The AI can monitor facial expressions, voice tones, or even wearable data, like having a heart monitor. It can, based on those, it can adjust scares and either make the experience feel alive and responsive, and it could also just take it down a notch if you're too scared. For the second, I looked at environment control, such as lighting, sound, fog, temperature, all that kind of stuff can react with the way that the guest is behaving. Keeps the pace of guests unpredictable, and it just heightens suspense as well. The third, I looked at adaptive storylines and characters. So AI adapts the storyline and character interactions based on your guest's actions. So no 2 visits are exactly the same. It adds depth and replayability. So you're not just going to get the same exact thing one after the other if you go. So for number 4, voice activated character interactions. The guest can speak to like a ghost or a haunted mirror, and the AI can dynamically respond. So you can never really know what you're going to get. It increases immersion and just unpredictability. So this big picture, AI can shift the experience from a one-time thrill to a evolving adventure, encouraging return visits, and just turning guests into active participants. There are a few challenges to consider, such as privacy concerns for facial recognition and data collection. And then it's also very expensive to implement this type of AI, so smaller attractions wouldn't be able to keep up with the large haunted house attractions. And just trying to balance technology innovation with traditional scare tactics so that the regular haunted house guests still feel like they're in the haunted house that they know and love. So, for final thoughts, AI opens the door to a new kind of horror experience, making them smarter, scarier, and more personal.
Well, I think you touched on this because I mentioned this when I saw the idea. This is a really cool idea. One of the drawbacks of the way I thought about it was escape rooms, because I'm a big fan of escape rooms, but escape rooms are very much one and done type of experiences.
I love escape rooms too, and you can't go back to them many times because then it's just boring. But with this, you can just have a new little factor that, hey, I never saw this part before, so let's see what else I can discover.
And you mentioned the prohibitive cost, which I do think is a necessary consideration. But do you think that that the benefit would be outweighed because there's an upfront cost, but I think that you probably minimize subjective cost later on down the line.
Yes and no, because so as the AI and technology evolves, you're still going to have to purchase that kind of technology, and it's still going to be pretty expensive. Yes, it will probably be less than what it was first, just because you already have something to back up the new stuff. But the smaller attractions wouldn't be able to keep up, so to say, with the larger ones, just because they don't have as much guests, or if they do, they usually have cheaper ticket prices. So it's just
It's pretty much like any business innovation is predicated on the success of the innovation. But yeah, it's a very clever idea. So, any other questions?
I got one. I'm a big fan of the Kansas City haunted houses downtown. I was wondering if you had a specific haunted attraction that you base this off of.
not really. I don't know what's in Kansas City because I'm from St. Louis. But just thinking about it, there's like a escape vault that I did with my best friend a couple years ago, and we were struggling so bad. So I think with this, it could kind of just increase the hardness level of it. So I think that would have been nice.
How do you think the AI would be able to evolve for guests that have unusual responses? I personally found out that I greet all of the scary things, and that personally freaked out my friend more than the scarers.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they would like respond to that, but I think it'd try to up the scare factor even more. Try to find something that you were absolutely terrified of, and try to incorporate that with the characters.
Andrew C.
Okay, so I'm a finance major, so I kind of want to do something with AI that has to do with something in finance. So I thought it'd be cool to see how accurately they could predict stock prices.
So the first way to do this is machine learning models, which is like studying historical data and historical trends of that stock and what it's most likely to be doing over time. The second one is sentiment analysis, which is this just them scanning like news articles, social media to kind of get that humanization to a certain extent because they can't because they're not humans, but just trying to see what events are going to influence the stock price the most. And like for example, like a factory like blows up or something like that, that would be something that would affect the stock price. The third way is technical and fundamental analysis, which is them evaluating stock charts, financial statements, earning reports, and it's also like say a stock price is being sold a lot or being bought a lot. You can say like whether that's a big deal or not a big deal, and kind of show you the attractiveness of the stock itself. And the last one was big data processing, which is them able to processing millions of data points in a couple of seconds, including economic indicators, interest rates, and geopolitical events to kind of just like what is going on in the country that might affect that stock. And I picked three stocks. I picked Nike, Apple, and Celsius. And I wanted to see how accurately it could actually predict the stock prices. So when we had our second deliverable due, it said that stock prices for Apple was gonna be like 205. It was off by like 5 to 10 points. But with like Celsius and with Celsius, it was a lot more accurate. I think that's because the stock price itself isn't as expensive. And I think AI could be a good tool, but it's not gonna be able to predict it completely accurate. So you should just use it like a tool because there's things that they're gonna be unable to predict.
So the kind of the traditional way that stock prices are established, the way that you kind of, I think you learned like when first starting finance is that it's supposed to be a discounted cash flow model. Which do you think would be that the AI tool would be better for establishing, like what the discounted cash flow should be or what the rate of return would be?
Well, I think it could be used for like the rate of return, like how attractive it is and like what you think what the AI thinks you would get back by like taking the risk of that.
And one thing that kind of popped up to me in your presentation is the idea of diversification, which is something that I think all finance professionals struggle with, is how to create a diversified portfolio. Part of that has to do with you have to understand the idiosyncratic risk associated with an individual stock. Do you think AI could be beneficial in that regard?
I don't think it can right now, but I definitely see it in the future being able to do that.
Other questions? Work. Got some discussion from our finance professionals today. It was good to see some insight in there, and then later that with haunted houses and D&D. So I'd say it's a complete day, guys. All right. See you all on Friday.